Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful start to the week out there, and we have a lot to talk about in today's video, from ongoing tropical activity to a big-time severe weather threat today as a major storm system crosses through the country. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Gerald. I am a meteorology major, about halfway through my junior year now at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Here to give you, again, an update on that ongoing severe weather potential. Again, whether it be in the actual severe weather department or in the tropics, or a little bit of everything in between as well, even out west with big time mountain snow ongoing. We're going to break it all down in today's video. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the video, hit that bell for the latest notifications. It's a great way to stay up to date. And then go ahead and comment. Let me know where you're all watching from. I think with that said, honestly, let's just go ahead and dive into things because I don't want to ramble on too long here in the intro. So we'll start here with latest satellite imagery across the lower 48 as well as the western Atlantic here through the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And you'll notice a pretty active scene here through multiple places over the United States specifically right now. All sorts of upper level clouds here indicating that we have some rain ongoing, including some convective rain, meaning thunderstorm activity into portions of Oklahoma, Texas, and even this morning into parts of the Ozarks of Arkansas and Missouri, seeing some of that, again, convective instability there leading to that lightning. So again, all this is really happening because we have a big time trough dipping through much of the western United States. This has led to plenty of diffluence in this region. That's just basically separating wind up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which creates a vacuum of sorts, basically. It causes a lot of rising motion, and you get these clouds to form and a lot of precipitation. But that's not the only thing we're watching. You'll notice even down here at the bottom of your screen, a lot of thunderstorm activity into the Caribbean and the southwest Atlantic. This is potential tropical cyclone 18, I believe, is the number on it, but very well likely to become Rafael sometime today, which would be the next name on our list for hurricane season. And this will bring impacts to some folks. So let's go ahead and actually start with that and kind of dive on into the tropics. Now, kind of zooming into what is soon to become Rafael, definitely a storm that is organizing more here on this Monday, and definitely starting to get more of a tropical look to it. Plenty of thunderstorm activity here. You'll even notice some of this kind of general cyclonic flow to it. And again, very likely to get that name here sometime this afternoon. As again, these ingredients are becoming a little bit more favorable for development, and we are beginning to see this thunderstorm activity kind of blossom a little bit more near that center of circulation that is trying to form. So latest from the National Hurricane Center here across the Atlantic as a whole, we actually do have another storm system that's going to kind of probably be the forgotten one of the year. This is subtropical storm Patty up here at the top right corner of your screen. Luckily, Patty is not going to become a problem for anybody, and we wouldn't want it to with such a sweet name like that. So that really leaves our attention down to the Caribbean, where again, potential tropical cyclone 18 is working on here with 35-mile-an-hour winds, moving north at 7 miles an hour, and pressure already down near 1,003 millibars. So just waiting on, again, confirmation that we have a center of circulation at the surface before pulling the name on that. And then another area to watch. I know, as crazy as it is here already, almost a week through November, and we're still watching areas in the tropics. But this next area that could potentially develop will be something that we'll talk about. But I really don't see any big impacts from that outside of maybe increased rain chances through the Bahamas and potentially even into Florida throughout the next week. But that's really the main story with that area. All right, so again, soon to become Rafael, we do have a track from the National Hurricane Center, and we are expecting strengthening over the next couple of days in the Caribbean, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. But again, expected to become a tropical storm sometime today, with winds by overnight tonight up and around 50 miles an hour as the storm passes just to the southwest here of the island of Jamaica. Because of that, we do have tropical storm warnings in effect for the island. And then we have hurricane warnings up for the Cayman Islands as the storm is expected to continue strengthening on approach through the Cayman Islands and towards Cuba. Again, a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm expected as it moves over the islands, but the warnings are up because it does have that potential to kind of exceed expectations a little bit, as we so often see in the tropics, and potentially become a hurricane. In fact, that's what's expected upon landfall in Cuba. So Again, it's late November, or excuse me, not late November, it's early November, but late in hurricane season. And we are still expecting a hurricane landfall here into the western tip of Cuba. This would be sometime Wednesday morning and afternoon before eventually then crossing into the Gulf of Mexico. And I'll zoom out a little bit here so you can kind of see the location, and expected to maintain hurricane strength, although very weak hurricane strength, right through the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. So I do understand that this probably looks slightly concerning. You know, anytime we have a hurricane entering the Gulf of Mexico, all eyes kind of get really wide and concerned, and rightfully so. But the good news is it is much later in hurricane season. So we have a lot more ingredients that are going to help to limit the potential for this to develop any stronger than it already is by the time it gets into the Gulf. And in fact, I think this is going to be one of the rare cases where the storm is weaker by the time it gets deep in the Gulf than when it entered. So that is the good news. And we'll talk about why here in just a moment. But I will mention, again, part of the country now in that cone here from New Orleans back towards Mobile. Again, we'll talk about track a little bit more specifically, but we're going to see impacts regardless of the track of this through portions of the southeast. All right, so again, what's driving the intensity of this system? Well, very warm sea surface temperatures in the Caribbean where this is tracking. In fact, more than warm enough to promote hurricane strengthening. In fact, this is some of the warmest ocean temperatures in the world. It's right down here into the Caribbean. Now, the good news, again, I mentioned this is going to cross Cuba and get into the Gulf of Mexico. And you'll notice sea surface temperatures actually are going to come down in the Gulf of Mexico, especially near the coastline of Florida, all the way back through Texas, through the entire Gulf Coast, as these cooler shelf waters are beginning to kind of form here as we move deeper towards the winter months, which again is really going to help us out here in preventing any sort of rapid intensification. So that is the good news here with what would be Rafael. Some other good news as well I'll mention is there are also some other ingredients that are going to help to kind of limit some of that intensification, I think. So moisture content in the atmosphere, again, in the Caribbean where we have those warm sea surface temperatures, there's also going to be a lot of moisture. And I'll mention this is the latest GFS models, what we're looking at here. So you'll notice around the storm system now through tomorrow afternoon, really not much dry air to penetrate the storm. So I think, again, through the next 24 to 36 hours, there's really not going to be much stopping Rafael from strengthening, as again, very warm sea surface temperatures, high moisture content. We'll take a look at wind shear next. But it's, again, once the storm crosses into the Gulf of Mexico, the GFS showing a hurricane at landfall in Cuba. I agree with that. I think probably a Category 1. Cannot rule out a Category 2, or maybe even an outside shot of a Category 3 major hurricane landfall into Cuba. So you folks need to take this one seriously. But it's after that, again, this crosses into the Gulf, and notice this dry air really kind of caves in on the storm on all sides here. And should definitely help to prevent any sort of rapid intensification, or maybe any intensification at all, as, again, the storm moves into a less favorable environment, going closer to the weekend. And then you'll notice, look at this dry air really taking over the center of the storm at least, and then kind of killing it off. And then after that, here's our next storm. And again, it runs into the same problems. Dry air in the vicinity should help to prevent that next area of interest from becoming anything too concerning. All right, wind shear ingredients this afternoon. Again, very low wind shear in blue here through the Gulf of Mexico, and beginning to become more favorable where the storm currently is, and will continue to become more favorable as the storm moves up into the Western Caribbean. Again, it's Tuesday afternoon that I think the storm is going to have the greatest opportunity for maybe a little bit of rapid intensification, likely over the Cayman Islands between Jamaica and Cuba here. It's this corridor that we're going to likely see strengthening towards hurricane. And again, that very small but outside chance of maybe even making a run for a low-end major hurricane as ingredients become quite favorable for development. Now, after that, in the wind shear department, honestly, wind shear stays pretty favorable through the Gulf of Mexico even. However, you'll notice very strong upper-level winds over the southeast. So as the storm approaches the southeast coastline, that will help to shear it into this region. Which will definitely be good news for us. So again, just to reiterate, the most favorable conditions for strengthening is going to be really now up through landfall into Cuba. So really the next 48 hours, we'll say, is whenever the storm's going to have the chance to intensify. It's after that that conditions become less favorable in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, favorable enough to maintain intensity probably for the first day or two in the Gulf, but after that, I expect the storm to begin to weaken as it approaches the U.S. coastline. Now, track-wise is a bit of a tough one on this one a little bit, and I'll show you why in a moment, but you'll notice you're thinking, well, just about all these models bring it up to Louisiana, but I do want you to focus on some of these southern outlier models that kind of pull this back towards Texas, because some of our global models are showing the same thing, and I'll show you that next. So the track, again, generally towards the southeast coastline, towards Louisiana, but some of these models, again, kind of diverging back towards Texas a little bit in that track, which could bring, or definitely would change some of the forecasted impacts, but we would still see rain out of this in the southeast either way. All right, intensity-wise, again, strengthening over the next 48 hours or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, up near Category 1 strength. A couple models, again, get this up near Category 2. And then we kind of notice that the intensity maintains itself, kind of levels out a little bit through that first day or so in the Gulf of Mexico. And then it's after that that the storm likely begins to weaken as it encounters some more of that dry air and cooler sea surface temperatures. All right, so let's take a look at a model or two here, and we will start again with what we left off with the GFS. Again, near tropical storm here through Jamaica sometime overnight tonight, then a tropical storm, maybe a hurricane through the Cayman Islands, and then a hurricane landfall into the western tip of Cuba. After that, and this is Wednesday morning, I'll add, we get this into the Gulf, and again, maintains intensity for the first day or two, but then begins to weaken upon approach to the southeast coastline. And really not much of a storm at that point as it moves inland towards the southeast. Now, European model is a bit different, weaker overall, but you would expect that with the European. It has a bit of a bias towards weaker solutions, so I would look at the GFS more strength-wise, I think. In fact, I'll tell you, I basically am very confident that that's going to be a better model to use for strength compared to the Euro. But what I do want to show you on the European is track, and notice what happens here. Completely different than the GFS. This kind of, again, does the same thing in the Caribbean, but then when it gets in the Gulf, hooks back towards Texas instead of moving up towards the southeast coastline. And then obviously because of that brings much lesser impacts to the southeast, less in rainfall, less in really all the impacts in general, but more importantly brings less rain into the United States. And the reason for that is what's happening in the upper levels. The GFS, or we'll start with the European, I guess, shows this big ridge here, and it's much stronger on the European model. Also, this little bit of blue you're seeing out here, or this troughing, is a little bit delayed compared to the GFS. So what happens is this ridge just continues to shove the storm towards Texas here instead of pulling it northward. It's also slightly because of the European's bias and intensity. Weaker storm is less likely to kind of move through this ridge. Because of that, again, the storm moves back out towards Texas through the week ahead. The GFS model, different here. You'll notice the ridge is oriented a little bit different. And what happens is this troughing is a bit stronger. Again, I cannot draw an arrow to save my life. This troughing is a bit stronger. The ridge is positioned a little bit more differently, and thus you get a storm track kind of up into the southeast between the two modes. So again, a difference between the two, I would lean towards the GFS, but there might be a little bit of a middle ground where this does curve north, but waits a little bit longer until maybe Louisiana, Arkansas, potentially even East Texas. So we'll watch for that for sure. But I do think either way, we're going to get a bit of a rainfall concern in the southeast, and the reason for that is also what's happening in the upper levels. What's happening is we're getting weak winds right here. You'll notice how these isobars are spread apart pretty big right here. That implies weak wind, and then you get much stronger winds here over the Carolinas, and what this creates is a bit of divergence. So, I'll kind of visualize it here a little bit with this random pen I have. So the wind is moving very slow, and then it speeds up as it enters this area of tighter isobars, and this creates a bit of a void in the atmosphere, and that creates rising motion at the surface, and because of that, we're going to squeeze out a pretty good amount of precipitation here over the southeast due to this overall setup, and you can see that here on the models. Rainfall from the GFS and its ensembles now through Friday afternoon. Notice a big pocket again right where that divergence is aloft over the Florida Panhandle and into southern Georgia and southern South Carolina of 2 to 4 inches of rain, isolated spots even up towards 5 or more inches is possible. The good news for us folks in the mountains, places who were just devastated by Helene, less amount of rain showing up that way. You're a little bit further displaced from those favorable ingredients for that heavy rainfall, which obviously is a good thing. But I do expect maybe a bit of a flooding threat through Georgia, southern South Carolina, and the Florida Panhandle. European model, again, same thing, shifted a little bit further towards Alabama and Georgia and moves a little bit further inland up towards the Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charlotte area. But you get the point here. Someone in the southeast is going to get a pretty good soaking out of this during the middle of the week here through that Wednesday into Friday timeframe. All right, folks, that is the tropics. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. And I've kind of liked doing it this way, starting the video, or not the video, obviously, we're 15 minutes into this thing, but starting the second half of the video with kind of what's happening currently on the ground. And a lot of what's happening is being influenced by our current surface pattern. So again, still dealing with high pressure and cold air damming over the east, still dealing with a big-time storm system out west, and then all of this divergence in between the two, leading to or a lot of rain falling up into the Midwest and kind of surrounding regions. You'll also notice another storm system working into the Pacific Northwest currently that will bring some impactful weather through the coming days for you folks up that way. All right, what are the reports on the ground here? Well, I honestly love using this map. These are IMPING reports, so these are all sorts of people, not even just meteorologists, just people living, reporting what they're seeing on the ground. And you'll notice the blue dots generally are the green dots rather are rainfall, and then the blue dots or snowflake symbols are snow and or sleet and or freezing rain. And we are seeing a little bit of that frozen precipitation up into the Northeast this morning. You folks into New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, you'll notice some of these little blue dots showing up indicating some freezing rain, sleet, and or snow. But overall, again, really just a whole lot of rain falling through much of the middle of the country as the storm system really cranks up, and even some rain in the southeast due to some of that onshore flow that we're getting enhanced by that cold air damming. Also, I mean, look at how well this overlaps. Reports, and then radar imagery and watches and warnings. Love it. So again, a lot of rain falling, obviously, with what you're seeing on radar here. Some of this being frozen up into the Northeast. So, some frozen precipitation up that way. If you're seeing ice fall, then definitely, that's going to be a little bit more concerning travel-wise than maybe just some good old-fashioned rain. But either way, something to mention there, something worth thinking about. And then a whole lot of rain again into the middle of the country. As all this works on through. I'm going to take radar off for a second just so we can talk about these watches, warnings, and advisories. Again, a lot of rain falling into the southern plains. This is bringing a flooding threat. We do have a flood watch in effect from Oklahoma City back towards Tulsa into northern Arkansas. In fact, we have flash flood warnings for this big corridor through the Ozarks of northern Arkansas into southern Missouri. I showed you on satellite that big convective band moving through this region. And I'll even put radar back on just so you can see it here for a moment. A lot of, very heavy rain falling into that area. We'll zoom out and move out west. The story out here is less rain and more snow. Look at all of these winter storm warnings in pink, winter weather advisories in the kind of bluish purple there, and then even some blizzard warnings up in effect here for northern Montana. Again, a lot of Rocky Mountain snow on the way here for the next couple of days. All right, the other concern, obviously, is severe weather. This has been a concern for a while, and we do have an enhanced risk of severe weather today here. Again, just to kind of familiarize you with the areas. This is Oklahoma, right into this area. I'll just kind of outline it for you. Again, if you want to pretend that's Oklahoma, this is Arkansas. And again, I am not an artist, so you get the point here. That's Missouri, or supposed to be Missouri. But a severe threat today is definitely going to be a concern in this enhanced risk, but even the slight risk and marginal risk spread out a bit more from southern Texas all the way up into Illinois. And this is driven today with the potential of strong, significant tornadoes in that hatched yellow area through much of the eastern and southern half of Oklahoma into western Arkansas, even up into Springfield, Joplin, Lebanon, Missouri, and then even back down towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area, having that potential of strong to severe tornadoes this afternoon, just meaning significant tornadoes going to be a concern. And then obviously also the wind threat is going to be a problem, and the hail threat as well also going to be a concern. Now, that's not the end of it. Tomorrow we do also have a severe weather risk, just smaller and kind of a bimodal setup tomorrow. So one small setup down into Louisiana, Arkansas, and extreme southeastern Texas, and then another little area up near our surface low pressure into Wisconsin as well. Threats for tomorrow. We do have a small tornado threat in both of those regions, so you're going to need to watch for that. And then wind will be another threat that we will watch for. And then probably less on a hail threat, but I would say maybe a little bit of a hail threat up into Wisconsin just due to some cooler upper level temperatures, but probably less or so down into Louisiana. All right, let's go ahead and time this out for you. And luckily, this is the wrong map I'm showing you. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and time this out for you with the right map, hopefully this time. Let me go ahead and just briefly run this all the way through ahead just so it loads properly. All right, so this afternoon, again, severe weather threat. I'm going to start with that here, and you'll notice all of these kind of cells in this region of eastern Oklahoma. This is where we're going to have the best overlap of severe weather ingredients, whether that be upper level winds or thermodynamic profiles that are going to promote the potential for severe weather. We'll need to watch for that this afternoon into this region of eastern Oklahoma. But again, that threat area even extending up into Arkansas and southern Missouri as well. Going to be seeing some strong storms this afternoon. And then eventually during the overnight hours, this congeals into more of a squall line. The tornado threat will come down slightly. But again, beforehand, while we're in this kind of mode right here, this is probably going to be about 3-4 o'clock this afternoon and evening, local time. That tornado threat should be pretty high with this more singular discrete cell mode. Then, as I mentioned, overnight becoming more of a squall line. Then we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and, a lot of rain and even severe weather potential continuing. Again, we talked about that southern severe weather risk down here into Louisiana, East Texas, and southern Arkansas. Tomorrow afternoon, you'll notice those storms, some of which could become discrete, so need to watch for that. You'll notice some of those storms firing out ahead of that main line of convection. Again, bringing a severe weather threat there, maybe even getting into southern Mississippi here. I wouldn't rule out some severe storms that way through the afternoon and evening hours. And then all of that continues into overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. And at that point, you'll notice, look at some of this snow falling out here into the Rockies. I'll back this up. This disturbance moving through Colorado, even some snow likely into Denver for your overnight Tuesday into Wednesday as this low pressure cranks up and moves on through. All right, so kind of the updraft helicity, this is where we're going to most likely have supercells to form, which obviously would be where we have the strongest storms, including a tornado potential. This is now through, I'll just kind of run this all the way ahead into time. So this is this afternoon into tonight, a big flare up through North Texas into Oklahoma, and then tomorrow afternoon, another flare up into Louisiana and Arkansas into this region and even into Mississippi. So need to watch through that region tomorrow. But today, the biggest threat going to be into Oklahoma, Texas, up into Arkansas. And if we move this map, north a little bit through some of these same regions, again, even a couple strong storms into extreme southeastern Kansas, much of Missouri under the gun, and then even into Illinois. Overnight tonight could see some of those storms. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll even add, again, watch up here into Wisconsin. You'll notice even into the UP of Michigan for our Tuesday afternoon, another flare-up of some of those rotating updrafts, indicating, again, a strong storm. So kind of a bimodal thing tomorrow, as we talked about. And if we zoom things out, you'll be able to see that threat up into Wisconsin tomorrow a little bit more. And we will go ahead and do that. So let me, again, just move this map all the way into time so it loads properly. Here we go. So this afternoon, we already talked about the severe weather. North of there, some rain for sure on the backside of this low where we get some of that divergence aloft through Kansas, Iowa. Less of a severe weather threat there, more of just a heavy rainfall threat. Also, seeing some widespread precipitation into portions of New England and even southern Canada here into southeastern Canada through Ontario, Quebec, even back towards New Brunswick. Some of that will fall as snow into the higher elevations of those regions. And again, this being really just enhanced by kind of a bit of a warm front that's setting up shop here, bringing a little bit of extra lift into that region. And I will also mention some showers into the Carolinas and the Southeast today. We're getting more of that onshore flow as we're getting a little bit of troughing here enhanced by some cold air damming along the southeast coastline. That could definitely lead to some shower activity into the southeast and maybe even a bit of a dreary kind of day in general. We get this into overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning by the time we're waking up. Again, severe weather threat along this line of storms. Just a good old-fashioned rainfall threat to the north of the warm front. But along the warm front, again, here is the position of that warm front. You'll notice right here kind of a bit of a triple point setting up, meaning a warm front and a cold front Well, I guess not really a dry line in this scenario. Maybe a little bit of a dry conveyor belt on this side. But either way, you're going to get some enhanced lift here into Wisconsin tomorrow. That's what's going to create that severe weather potential into that region. You'll notice some of these storms become a bit more convective and ride right along that warm front into that region tomorrow afternoon for Tuesday. And again, that can move even into the UP of Michigan. So folks watching up that way, maybe a couple severe storms tomorrow. And also tomorrow afternoon, we don't have a threat area in between like I showed you, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they play it safe and just throw in a marginal risk here in between where we could see some strong straight line winds and maybe even an outside shot of an embedded low-level circulation that tries to become tornadic for your Tuesday afternoon. And then again, all this is happening, strong onshore flow in the southeast. This will kind of be the start of that rainfall event, not directly related to our tropical system to the south, but kind of a bit of a precursor event, as we often call them here, with some strong southerly flow. And then all of this kind of just maintains, and we have a pretty rainy next couple of days across much of the east. In fact, even into the southeast where we haven't seen a lot of rain, noticing some of that heavier rain showing up by Wednesday morning. So again, I know I'm kind of rushed through that a little bit, but a lot happening. So all right, the west, again, the story out here is going to be mountain snow. Again, I'm going to kind of very quickly run through all this because the model just ran as I was talking about the tropics. So here we go. One big storm system in the Pacific Northwest, one big storm system down near New Mexico and Texas. The story, high elevation rain, high elevation snow, low elevation rain. And all this kind of swings on through, and it's just going to be snow band after snow band after snow band, or snow squall after snow squall into the northern Rockies for your Monday afternoon, overnight Monday into Tuesday. And then that little disturbance moves far enough south that we do get a bit of a Colorado low to form. In fact, kind of two Rocky Mountain lows due to this Bear Clinic zone by overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. So the northern Rockies, a lot of snow falling. The middle of the Rockies through Colorado, a lot of snow falling at the same time here. This is Tuesday evening into the overnight hours of Wednesday. Again, two separate storms bringing heavy snow, and you'll even notice by Wednesday some of that snow breaking containment from the mountains and getting out into the foothills of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. So definitely some snowfall on the way for folks, even not just in the Rockies. All right, let's move this ahead into time a little bit. Here is our storm Tuesday afternoon. We'll move this into Wednesday morning, kind of where we left off. And again, the rain continuing to work through the east, especially the southeast. And this sets up shop for, again, that next kind of low forming down towards Colorado. And by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, another strong storm system showing up here, bringing snow on one side and severe weather likely on the other side for our coming weekend. And again, we'll bring another plume of moisture across the country as we go about a week or so from now. So again, I'll briefly mention that. Rainfall and snowfall totals will start with rain. This is just now through Wednesday morning. Again, a big plume of moisture into the central part of the country where we have that current storm system, but you'll notice this southerly flow even bringing some showers into the deep part of the southeast from Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and into the Carolinas. But after that, we get another plume of moisture due to that tropical system Wednesday through Friday. And then into the weekend, another big plume of moisture with that next storm system, kind of right through the middle part of the country where we've already had a lot of rainfall. Snowfall, yeah, well, it's going to snow a lot into the Rockies, to be completely honest with you. The southern Rockies, the northern Rockies, the Cascades, the Sierra Nevadas, I mean, everywhere out west, if you're on a mountain, going to have a pretty good shot at some sort of frozen precipitation falling over the next 10 days. And again, some of that snow breaking containment, even getting into western Nebraska, Kansas, and even the extreme panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas could pick up on a little bit of snow due to some of these storm systems. Alrighty, folks, talked about a lot. There was a lot to discuss, but hopefully you found some use in the video. Again, if you did, like, subscribe, comment, and anything else you want to do with the video, definitely feel free to do it. Alrighty, folks, have a great rest of your Monday. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.